In the late 90s, a number of employees from UK developer Bullfrog Productions left to form their own companies. The most prominent of these was Lionhead Studios, since it was the brainchild of famed game maker Peter Molyneux. Molyneux tried to help out the other startups by setting a satellite business model, in which his own Lionhead would handle the business side of things, leaving the other studios free to concentrate on game making. Sadly, all but one of these went bust. But the one that made it, Big Blue Box, had begun work on an RPG so ambitious that even Microsoft was wowed. After being formally acquired by Lionhead, the team completed Fable in September 2004. And while the game received good reviews and smashed sales records on Xbox, Molyneux had made so many broken promises that there was still a sense of disappointment. It was up to Lionhead now to prove that their big ideas and game-making skills were more than just a fairy tale. Despite a mixed reaction from fans, the game had sold like crazy. Microsoft's faith in the upstart developer had been justified, and Fable had become one of the few standout RPGs on the Xbox. About a year later, Lionhead brought their game to Microsoft's other platform, the PC. In September 2005, Fable: The Lost Chapters released, featuring all the original Xbox game, plus some additional content. A month later, The Lost Chapters came to the Xbox as well. In just over a year, the series had become one of Microsoft's signature franchises. The software giant had seen all it needed to. It wanted a major RPG developer under its wing to help diversify the Xbox catalog. Its relationship with Lionhead had been fantastic, and right around this time, Lionhead was actually hitting some financial difficulty, despite Fable's success. The solution was pretty clear to both parties, and in April 2006, Microsoft announced that it had acquired Lionhead outright. With Microsoft itself as their corporate head, all of Lionhead could now be free to focus on game design and let Redmond deal with the business stuff. If there was one casualty in this otherwise good deal, it was PC gaming. Microsoft wanted Lionhead to focus in on the Xbox exclusively. To drive that home, at that year's E3, Lionhead announced Fable 2 for the Xbox 360. The game would not actually release until October 2008, almost 4 years after the first game. But the game itself would not take place 4 years after the first one. No, Fable 2 took place 500 years after the original. Fantasy games almost exclusively take place in medieval settings, but Lionhead dared to take their RPG into the Renaissance era. The world was even bigger and more immersive than before, featuring a full economic system with real estate that you could rent and jobs you could take. But the biggest changes were in companionship. Like before, players could choose to get married, but now that marriage could produce children, who would grow older as the game progressed. As before, to keep your family, the player would have to show them attention after long adventures. On his adventure, he'd have a faithful hound who would follow him throughout the entire game. The dog could uncover hidden treasures or help during combat, but all in all would become the player's best virtual friend. As for his real-world friends, Fable 2 featured the multiplayer co-op that Molyneux had promised for the first game. Unfortunately, this co-op didn't allow for two players' heroes to be together. Rather, one player would have to be the other's henchman. It was a signature flaw for the game and ended up making the whole co-op experience seem unfinished. Other problems included another surprisingly light storyline and a very low difficulty that made the game seem almost too easy to play. It also didn't help that the main character couldn't talk, but only communicate with a limiting set of basic expressions. But once again, as a whole, the game was considered a tremendous accomplishment in a beautifully realized world, and audiences flocked to it. Fable 2 was another success for Lionhead and Microsoft. But then at Gamescom 2009, Molyneux announced that they were releasing the game again. But there was a twist. They would be breaking Fable 2 up into 5 episodes that would be available for download through Xbox Live, with the first episode free. New players could dip their toes into the world, and if they liked it, pay for the rest of the episodes. It was a throwback to the old Apogee model that had helped games like Doom achieve widespread popularity. However, sometime later these episodes were quietly removed, and now the game can only be purchased as one big download. At that same press conference, however, Molyneux also announced Fable 3. Once again, the hyperbolent Molyneux made big claims, including the ability to rule as king, and the fact that Fable 3 would read your Fable 2 save file. But even more surprising was the release date, late 2010. The first Fable had taken over 4 years to make, Fable 2 almost exactly 4, and now this even bigger sequel would be done in only 2 years? Given Molyneux's history, there was some skepticism. But sure enough, in October 2010, Fable 3 released as big and bold as any Fable before it. Once again, the series switched settings, this time to the Industrial Age, almost never visited in fantasy. As promised, it would allow the player to foment a revolution and become ruling king. As king, the player would have to live up to or break promises made throughout the campaign, and then make hard decisions that would affect his subjects. However, this major selling point only occurred at the very end of the game. For most of the rest of it, it was more of what people had come to expect from Fable. To be fair, the multiplayer was improved significantly, ditching the unpopular henchman system and letting 2 heroes play together. Nowhere to be found, however, was Molyneux's promise of reading the Fable 2 save file. Oh well. Molyneux had publicly stated that he wants Fable 3 to sell at least 5 million copies, because a franchise won't continue if it can't reach that level of success. And since he's also claimed that Lionhead has Fables 4 and 5 already planned out, they certainly want it to continue. To help it hit that level, Molyneux plans for Fable 3 to be released on Xbox Live in the same episodic format they'd tried with Fable 2. Since he mentioned it in June, there has been no further sign of an episodic Fable 3. But then again, he did say it wouldn't be ready by disc's launch, so don't be surprised if it hits Xbox Live soon. Fable began as a labor of love for a couple of guys who wanted to be making challenging games right from the get-go. And through a couple of smart business deals and more than their fair share of luck, they have created one of the most famous RPG brands of the last decade. Whether or not the Fable franchise will continue on to its proper end will depend on how Fable 3 sells, but regardless, it has made Lionhead Studios a household name, and that creative team will find no shortage of work, Fable or otherwise. From its whimsical art design, to its innovative approach to character and world evolution, to the different eras it has chosen to explore, Fable has managed to become one of the most unique series in its genre, and one of the most fairy tale stories in its industry.